Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so we have to talk about AEW. We have to, because AEW delivered last night, which was, upon reflection, I kind of took my time to record today, and kind of because I just wanted to really try and get my thoughts together on that event last night. And obviously we did the watch long, we did the post-show reaction stream, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. And now that we've had nearly sort of 24 hours-ish, not exactly, but nearly a day to kind of reflect on it, it has to be one of the greatest, certainly it's the greatest pay-per-view in AEW short history, no doubt about that. But it's got to be right up there as one of the best pay-per-views certainly in modern history, in recent times of all time. So that's a lot of pay-per-views, frankly. There's a lot of pro wrestling events in there. In terms of being, one of the most complete cards you'll ever see, and in terms of moments, in terms of big matches, big fight feels, surprises, debuts, fan service, crowd service, moments that you went, that's just unbelievable. All of it. AEW beyond delivered last night, beyond delivered. So we have to talk about AEW today, even if we're just talking about what happened again last night, because it was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And of course, I don't even know if it's the biggest story, but one of the biggest stories coming out of All Out last night, of course, was Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole, both making their AEW debuts to close out last night's All Out pay-per-view event. Now, after weeks of speculation, Bryan Danielson finally made his debut at last night's AEW All Out pay-per-view. Now, Bryan's WWE contract expired around late April, early May of this year, and the former WWE superstar decided not to re-sign with the company. It was reported that Bryan was looking for less dates with comparable money to WWE's offer, along with the ability to wrestle in Japan. But he wasn't the only star that was making his AEW debut on the show, because Adam Cole, former NXT champion Adam Cole, also made his big debut on last night's show after becoming a free agent at the end of last month. Now, in the main event of the show, AEW World Champion Kenny Omega defeated Christian Cage to retain his AEW World Championship. He then cut a promo saying how nobody could beat him, and the only people that could beat him were either dead or retired, and not in AEW. Suddenly the lights go out, and out comes Adam Cole. Adam Cole's music hit, and he came out to a big pop. Now, it's funny because he mentioned, they're already dead. It's a reference to Adam Cole and being the Elite being killed off. They've actually dropped an episode today where he's been brought back, and the seance and all this kind of stuff. So Adam Cole's music hits. Out comes Adam Cole to a big pop. He gets in the ring to face off with Omega and the Elite, the Super Elite that are in there. So Doc Gallows, Kyle Anderson, the Young Bucks, Don Callis. And as he's facing off with Kenny Omega, what does he do? Bang! Quickly super kicks Jungle Boy, who came down to help out Christian during a post-match beatdown. Cole then reunited with his friends and said that the Elite was the most dominant group in pro wrestling. Omega then went to do his signature sign-off, and suddenly Bryan Danielson's music hits. He got into the ring, teamed up with Jurassic Express and Christian against the Elite, with Omega running out of the ring. The Elite was quickly cleared away as Danielson and the rest of his guys celebrated to close out the show. So, again, I don't want to talk too much about what it means and the moment itself, because that's what the post-show's for. The post-show's for that, and you can go see sort of my thoughts and immediate reactions to that. You can actually go see me watch it in real time when we were doing the watch-along on the channel as well. Really appreciate everyone that joined us last night. It was tremendous. It just feels, again, as I mentioned, the good thing about doing these videos on a daily basis is that you do have this ability to kind of reflect on things. You have this ability just to think about this stuff and think about it being like, man, this feels really significant. This feels really significant, and it does feel like a moment. That's what I kept saying last night, and it hasn't changed. That last night felt like a really big moment. And people can talk about AEW not being competition to WWE and all this kind of stuff, but it's just crazy, isn't it? Because you've got that show last night, and we're now really getting the feeling. It's always been there, but we're now really getting the feeling that most people want to be in AEW. I'm not sure that everyone in WWE wants to be in AEW, but people like Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole openly said, I really liked it in WWE. Daniel Bryan says they made me a really good offer, and I really like it there. Of course, I've literally got family there in senior positions. His father-in-law, John Laurinaitis, right, is in a senior executive position in the company. His wife's still with the company, Brie Bella. But despite all that, and whilst he liked it and he had a great relationship with Vince McMahon, he thought, I just need to leave. I need to it doesn't feel the same anymore. I don't have that passion anymore. It's not igniting me the way it once was. And Adam Cole was the same. He's kind of like, I do really like it here. I'm not sure about the main roster and all this kind of stuff. And they had a media call after the show, and they obviously asked lots of questions about their signing with AEW, and they both kind of said the same thing. Really liked it there. Really, really liked it in WWE, and I've got nothing really bad to say about them, but I need to do this for me, and this is the place to be. This is the place that's got the momentum. This is the place that's got the crowd, and you can be yourself, and it's what pro wrestling is meant to be. It's fun, and it's on a bigger stage. It's like, it's like those fun they used to have back in the day, but it's on TNT every Wednesday night, and it does have sold-out arenas, all that kind of stuff, and AEW's got that energy right now. Now, is it going to compete with WWE in terms of viewership and ratings and all that kind of stuff? Not right now. But there does feel like something's happening. Something is happening, and it's going to be really interesting to see where this goes, because arguably AEW has the most stacked roster in the world right now. The only thing I think that WWE probably has over AEW right now in terms of quality in-ring talent, maybe when it comes to maybe the women's division, but even the women's division I think in AEW is still relatively strong. It just needs to be booked that way. But in terms of the talent they have now, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Adam Cole, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Jungle Boy, Darby Allin. You've got people like Sting in there as well. I mean, the list goes on and on of all of these talents that they have, and it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. You've got Hangman Page too. I mean, the list goes on and on of these talents that they have, and it's arguably the strongest roster out there today. It really, truly is. Now, Bryan Danielson addressed the fans at the Now Arena after making his AEW debut at Sunday's All Out pay-per-view. He said, quote, "There's some people around here who call themselves elite. I'm going to be here to see if they truly are." He also explained his decision to join AEW. He said, quote, "I am a wrestler. I never left wrestling. I took wrestling everywhere I went. I said wrestling when I wasn't supposed to say wrestling, and now I'm here to goddamn wrestle." And then he fired up and he finished his promo with, "So AEW, let's effing go." Daniel Bryan dropped a couple of F-bombs last night. Again, I would really recommend to watch the post-show media scrum that AEW did. A lot of people uploaded their own version of it. AEW in the last sort of hour or so at the time of recording has uploaded their own version, which is much clearer and it's got good sound and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, I think that's such a great thing they do as well. And not this video isn't meant to be, you're a big AEW mark and you're kissing their behinds and you're saying everything they do is great, all that kind of stuff. That's not what this video is meant to be. It's just meant to be that they're different. And I don't know about you. If I was a pro wrestler right now and I had the opportunity to sign with either WWE or AEW, I know where I would go. I really do know where I'd go. And the reason I say that is because, having that sort of artistic license and feeling like an artist and not being shackled by the corporate structure and having fun and, all that kind of stuff in the schedule, it's so appealing, obviously, to all of these people. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It really is. Now, of course, All Out last night also saw CM Punk wrestle his first match in over 7.5 years, and he did so defeating Darby Allin. In his AEW debut match, CM Punk defeated Darby Allin at All Out. This was Punk's first match in over 7 years. Now, the crowd was firmly behind Punk, but despite this, Darby Allin did receive a number of chants throughout the match as well. Something which Punk did point out, actually, in his post-show media scrum that he was particularly proud of. He said, I didn't want this to be a situation where it's just, crowds all over Darby Allin, they're booing him. I want to get out of this match where we're still both baby faces and Darby Allin feels like a bigger deal because he stepped in the ring with me. And I think they achieved that. I do. Now, near the end of the match, CM Punk was able to hit the GTS on Darby Allin for the pinfall victory. Post-match, CM Punk celebrated in the ring before Sting came down to the ring to check on his friend. Sting then offered his hand to Punk, who eventually shook it. Darby Allin got up after the match and Punk shook his hand. I've seen some people criticizing the match, which I don't really understand. I think people have been saying, it was boring. It was boring. It was a boring match. It was a slow match. CM Punk did a lot of rest holds and CM Punk was tired and he blew up and all this kind of stuff. I would say, first of all, the guy wrestled his first match in 7.5 years. Pipe down a little bit when it comes to the whole, you blew your cardio, all that kind of stuff. I think it's ridiculous. I think for me, it was arguably the most psychologically sound match on the show. And I think the people that would say it was boring and it was slow, are people that are just so in tune to what modern day pro wrestling is, where it's high spot after high spot after high spot after high spot with no psychology, no transitions into high spots. And don't get me wrong, I think the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks match was the best match on the show. The reason I think it was the best match on the show, though, is because they actually put some psychology in there eventually. I think that Punk, this is why I said in the post-show last night, I think where Punk's really going to stand out in AEW is that he's going to bring psychology to his matches. He's going to bring a style that his generation of fans or people his age will appreciate, because they'll go, that makes sense. And if you watch that match back last night, it had loads of little nuances and throwbacks and hints at other famous matches. There's the gif going around on social media of CM Punk paying homage to Bret Hart versus the 1-2-3 Kid on Monday Night Raw in 1990. What year was that? 95, maybe 94. Maybe even 93. I don't know. But it's a throwback to them at the beginning of the match where Darby Allin does like an arm drag and CM Punk kind of goes, he got me. And that's a throwback to that match. That it was filled of those kind of little bits in that match. And that psychology, that storytelling. And people can say, well, that's boring. That's because you're not used to it. Because that psychology, that storytelling's disappeared. And once you understand it and you appreciate it, you go, actually, that match wasn't that bad at all. And I think people that thought Punk was going to go in there and high flying, you've probably never watched a CM Punk match. Maybe back in the day he might have been considered a high flyer because he did one springboard clothesline, but he's not a high flyer. He's a wrestler. He knows all the different kind of moves, and he can adapt to many different styles, and I think he did an excellent job. And you've got to remember, again, this is a guy in his 40s who hasn't wrestled in 7 years. I think he did a fine job, absolutely. Now, obviously, he did the post-show media scrum as well, had some things to say. Of course, it's CM Punk. When doesn't he have stuff to say? He asked a few thoughts. Was obviously one about Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson showing up in AEW, and Punk says, I don't want to say the line because I don't want to get demonetized, but he said, part of my lewdness, I got a blank for that. Honestly, I feel everyone has their own journey, their own story, their own experiences where we used to work. But I heard Bryan say it. I left and I don't got a lot of good things to say. He left and he loved the place. But what does it mean when you love that place and you still don't want to be there? You want to be here. I think that speaks volumes. Adam Cole is a guy I've never wrestled. I know I'm going to sometime. I look forward to it. Daniel Bryan is a guy I have wrestled and I look forward to it. That's somewhere down the line too. It's literally, I'm a kid at Christmas. I unwrap a gift. I don't know what's going to be in it. Could be Adam Cole, could be Daniel Bryan, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks. It could be Will Hobbs, Ricky Starks. I mean, it's just endless. I'm so happy right now. And you get that impression. Again, if you watch that press conference, you get the impression with Punk that, again, this is a guy that for 7 years, maybe he was bitter, or maybe he was just completely out of love of pro wrestling, and they just kicked that joy out of him, WWE, or just that system had kicked the joy out of him, and he just didn't like to do it anymore, and he never thought he was going to get it back. And you see him last night, he's revitalized, absolutely revitalized. He's back in love with pro wrestling, and it's just great to see. It just is absolutely fantastic to see, and seeing CM Punk back. And again, you look at that roster, whether it's CM Punk, Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson rather, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, MJF. I mean, the list really goes on and on and on and on. And it's tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And there are so many matches for CM Punk to have that I'm very, very excited about. And I think he did a good showing last night. I really did. Now, another surprise last night was Minoru Suzuki showing up. Now, Jon Moxley defeated New Japan star Satoshi Kojima at All Out last night. Moxley won after hitting 2 paradigm shifts. But after the match, Minoru Suzuki's music hit and surprised Moxley as he came to the ring. Moxley and Suzuki faced off for a moment. Suzuki then took his jacket off and they battled in the ring. The two threw some big shots and laughed along the way. Suzuki eventually put Moxley down with a rear naked choke and a Gotch-style pile driver, which was awesome, amazing, and the place went absolutely crazy. They would sing along to his theme song, and I mentioned it last night. Moxley's kind of involvement in the show did kind of feel like an afterthought, and I think because a lot of people wanted Tanahashi, and that didn't happen for whatever reasons. But thinking about it now, I mentioned this last night, I think they got it right. I think they got it right with Kojima. The match was fine, nothing to write home about, but it could have been Minoru Suzuki last night. But would that have been the best time to do it? The answer is no. Look what was going on that card. You had CM Punk, you had Bryan Danielson, you had Adam Cole, you had all of those incredible matches on that show. You had MJF, you had the steel cage match. Minoru Suzuki versus Jon Moxley should be taken center stage, should be celebrated. So I would prefer it to be in the main event of Dynamite in Jon Moxley's hometown as opposed to second on the show at All Out. I think that makes way more sense. So I think they absolutely got that right. And speaking of that, that's why on Wednesday night we're getting it. We're getting Jon Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki in Jon Moxley's hometown. They're calling it the homecoming match, which is just tremendous because later on in the event last night it was announced that Moxley will beat Suzuki in the ring for his homecoming match on this coming week's Dynamite from Cincinnati, Ohio. A couple other things have been announced for the show include Ruby Soho's first Dynamite appearance, which is a spoiler of what we're going to talk about in a second. Malachi Black will also meet Dustin Rhodes. There was also a little bit of news as well about Full Gear. The Full Gear date has been changed. It's now going to be taking place on Saturday, November 13th. Originally, it was going to take place on Saturday, November 6th. In St. Louis, but it's not going to happen now. We don't know the location. Might not be taking place in St. Louis. That's a possibility. Tony Khan wouldn't commit to that, which makes me think that probably isn't going to take place in St. Louis. The reason for the date change, Tony Khan confirmed it in the post-show media scrum, is due to the big UFC and boxing events that are happening on November 6th, and they don't want to compete with that, or they just want to have the most eyeballs on the product possible. But when it comes to Minoru Suzuki, Jon Moxley, I, like everyone else, very excited. Very excited. Should it be the main event? I think it is going to be the main event. I think Moxley would win. And then maybe we do get Tanahashi show up in terms of a video package or something like that, right? Or maybe they just carry on and they continue this feud. Time will only tell. Last night, All Out, we saw new AEW World Tag Team Champions. The Lucha Brothers win the AEW World Tag Team Championships for the first time, defeating the Young Bucks in a steel cage match. The match was just brutal, absolutely brutal. Saw Rey Fenix jumping off the top of the cage. Matt Jackson bringing a sneaker into the match, which had thumbtacks on the bottom of it. Penta and Phoenix hit a spike piledriver on Nick Jackson to finally win the match via pinfall. Post-match, the champions were in tears as they picked up the big victory. Pentagon's family came out of the ringside area and gave him a big hug and got covered in blood because Pentagon Jr., you can see it in the image that Pentagon was just, even though he's wearing a mask, it's stained red because he was just covered in blood. Like I mentioned last night during the post show, it was the match of the night. There's no doubt about it. Initially, it kind of did feel a bit like, it kind of felt like initially of just like we're going to go to spot, next spot, which is what you expect from a Young Bucks Lucha Brothers match. But once they started to add in those layers of psychology of Penta defending his younger brother, taking the blows for his younger brother, once Matt Jackson introduced the thumbtack sneaker in, that's when it really got me. I thought, okay, they're doing a story here. They're telling stories now. This is when that really gripped me. And look again, Penta absolutely covered in blood. Rey Fenix juice as well. I think Nick Jackson did as well. Matt Jackson didn't, but it was brutal. It's everything a steel cage match should be, and it was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. How long they'll hold on for the titles for, I don't know. I still think Santana and Ortiz at least challenge for it at the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite in New York. Whether or not they win it, time will tell, but I thought it was an absolutely tremendous match of the night easily, and that says a lot with the matches that were on that show last night, so credit to everyone involved in that one. I mentioned earlier we saw Ruby Soho make her debut and win the AEW Women's Casino Battle Royale. Now, of course, Soho was released by WWE in June of this year. Soho ended up winning the match to earn a future title shot at the AEW Women's World Championship by last eliminating Thunder Rosa. Rounding out the top four in the Battle Royale was Nyla Rose and Tay Conti. Britt Baker, of course, is the current Women's Champion. She retained her championship over Chris Statlander earlier on in the evening. No word on when Soho will be facing Baker, but she will be on Dynamite on Wednesday. She immediately, as she came out, felt like a bigger deal than she'd ever been in WWE. Immediately. Absolutely immediately, which I think says a lot. I think the presentation, the name, obviously it's a Rancid tribute, and his name Lars from Rancid actually said to Ruby, you know, why don't you call yourself Ruby Soho and you can come out to the music? And she was like, yes, because she's a huge fan of it. And it was a great entrance. She got a great pop, and That was, again, I think I hope it's a turning point for the AEW Women's Division. And the reason I say that is because you had 2 women's matches on the show that both got time and I think both delivered. And that Women's Battle Royale was the second longest match of the show. It only lost out to the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers by 5 seconds, which I think speaks volumes. And the crowd are into it. They loved it. And they loved Ruby Soho. So I'm very excited to see what she's going to be doing in AEW going forward. Don't think she'll win the title from Britt Baker, but no doubt the match will be excellent nevertheless. Finally, on the pre-show, we got a Dan Lambert promo, which I think, to be honest with you, I do have kind of a soft spot, it must be said. This all took place on the buy-in on the pre-show. One thing that did take place on the pre-show as well, saw the Butcher make his return to help out the Hardy family office, attack Orange Cassidy. He looked to be in great shape, it must be said. It looks like he's dropped a bit of weight. American Top Team's Dan Lambert cut a promo on the pre-show, noted that Scorpio Sky has signed a 5-year extension with AEW. Lambert showed up once again with MMA fighters Junior Dos Santos, Andre Arlovsky, and Jorge Masvidal on the pre-show. Masvidal, as you can see right there, had sunglasses on and was eating popcorn, and it was pretty tremendous. Whether or not we're going to get an actual sort of match with those UFC guys involved, obviously Jorge Masvidal is a big draw. He's a big draw, even though he lost his last fight or his last couple. He still is the BMF champion, and that would be a big deal for AEW, so we'll have to wait and see whether they can pull it off. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, gut the rankings, and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.